He wasn't supposed to be on that floor. The 34th floor of the Callaway Group's headquarters in Nashville, Tennessee was executive territory, glass walls and hushed carpet and the kind of deliberate quiet that organizations use to communicate, without saying it directly, that the people who work here operate at an altitude where ordinary noise doesn't belong. Marcus Tillman worked on the 19th floor. He was a logistics coordinator, mid-level, good at his job in the specific way that people who genuinely care about the mechanics of things are good at their jobs. Not flashy, not political, just precise and reliable and present in a way that his team had come to depend on without fully articulating why. He was on the 34th floor at 7:45 on a Thursday morning because the elevator had opened on the wrong level and he had stepped out on instinct before the floor number registered, and by the time he understood his mistake the doors had closed behind him and the hallway stretched ahead of him in both directions with the particular silence of a space that hadn't yet been occupied by the day. He turned back toward the elevator bank. He pressed the button. He waited. And that was when he heard it, the sound coming from the corner office at the end of the hall, the one with the floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the Cumberland River. Not a loud sound. Almost not a sound at all. The specific, suppressed quality of someone crying who has spent a long time learning to cry quietly, the kind of weeping that has been practiced into smallness, compressed down to something that takes up as little space as possible, as though even grief must be managed efficiently. Marcus Tillman stood at the elevator bank for a long moment. The elevator arrived. The doors opened. He let them close. Her name was Victoria Callaway. She was 52 years old and she was, in the most literal sense available, the reason the building existed, the daughter of the company's founder, the architect of its transformation from a regional distribution company into a national logistics firm with 1,100 employees and operations in 23 states. She had taken over from her father 17 years ago when he was diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's, had guided the company through a recession and a pandemic and 2 hostile acquisition attempts, and had done all of it with a composure so complete and consistent that the people who worked for her had quietly stopped thinking of it as composure and started thinking of it as simply her nature. Marcus had worked for the Callaway Group for 4 years. He had been in the same room as Victoria Callaway perhaps 6 times, town halls, one all-staff meeting, a company anniversary event where she had given a speech that was precise and warm and lasted exactly as long as it needed to. He had formed the impression of a woman who was entirely competent and entirely self-contained and entirely unreachable, not because she was cold but because she was complete, the kind of person who seems to require nothing from the people around them because they have long since stopped expecting the world to offer what they need. He knocked on the open office door anyway. Not loudly. Just enough. She was at her desk, facing the window, the river silver and indifferent in the early light below. She turned at the knock with the speed of someone trained by years of authority to convert private emotion into public composure instantly, and for a brief second, just a second, the conversion was incomplete. He saw it. The red rim of her eyes. The tissue she'd moved to her lap. The particular expression of a person who has been alone with something heavy and has been surprised in the middle of carrying it. Then the composure arrived, seamlessly, like a curtain. "Can I help you?" Her voice was level, professional. The voice of someone who had decided, in the half-second available, that the best management of this situation was to treat it as a normal interaction. Marcus recognized this maneuver. He'd used it himself, more times than he could count, in the years since his wife had died. The rapid reassembly of the functional face, the voice tuned to a frequency that said everything is fine even when everything was not fine, even when everything was, in fact, considerably the opposite. "I got off on the wrong floor," he said. Marcus Tillman. "Logistics, 19th. The elevator bank is behind you," she said. "I know," he said. He didn't move. She looked at him with the expression of someone recalibrating a situation that is not behaving according to expectation. "Mr. Tillman," she said carefully. "I lost my wife 4 years ago," he said. "Not as an intrusion, as an offering. My son was 5. I know what it looks like when someone has been carrying something alone for too long." He paused. "I'm not trying to overstep. I just couldn't get back on the elevator." The silence that followed was the kind that has weight and texture. Victoria Callaway looked at him across the expanse of her executive office, the woman who had navigated recessions and acquisitions and 17 years of decisions that affected 1,100 families, and something in her face shifted in a way that had nothing to do with composure or its management. Her hands, he noticed, were pressed flat on the desk. The way people press their hands flat when they are trying to keep themselves from trembling. "Sit down, Mr. Tillman," she said quietly. He sat. It came out slowly, the way things come out when they have been contained for a very long time and the container has finally, in the presence of an unexpected witness, developed a crack. Her father, the man who had built this company, who had handed it to her with the specific faith of someone who knows they are leaving something precious in the right hands, had taken a significant turn in the night. The Parkinson's had progressed in the way it progresses, steadily and without negotiation, and the call she had received at 2 a.m. from the care facility in Franklin had used words that had rearranged something permanent in her understanding of what the coming months would hold. She had come to the office because she didn't know where else to go. Because this building was the thing they had built together, her father and she, and being inside it at 7 a.m. with the river out the window and his photograph on her desk was the closest she could get to him before she drove to Franklin at noon and sat beside him and tried to be, for him, what he had always been for her, steady, present, unafraid. "He used to bring me here on Saturdays," she said. "When I was small, he'd let me sit in his chair and look at the river and he'd say," she stopped. Pressed her hands flat again. "He'd say, 'Vicky, from up here you can see how everything connects.'" Her voice had lost its executive register entirely. She sounded, in this moment, like someone's daughter. Like someone sitting in her father's chair trying to see how everything connected. Marcus sat with this. He did not offer reassurance, because reassurance was not what this moment needed. He sat with her in the truth of it, the way he had learned, through long nights and a young son and the accumulated education of grief, that sometimes the most important thing one person can do for another is simply refuse to let them be alone with the heavy thing. After a while he said, "My son plants a flower. Every year on his mother's birthday. His idea, not mine. He says it means she's still growing something." He paused. "He's 9. I don't know where he gets it." Victoria looked at him. Her eyes were bright, but the trembling in her hands had stopped. "What's his name?" she said. "Noah," Marcus said. She nodded slowly, as though the name meant something. As though the image of a 9-year-old boy planting flowers for his mother had reached some specific place in her that needed reaching. "Your father built something that employs 1,100 people," Marcus said. "Every one of them has a family. That's a lot of things still growing." He was at his desk on the 19th floor by 8:30. He did not tell anyone where he'd been. It was not his story to tell. At 11:45, his desk phone rang. "Mr. Tillman." Victoria Calloway's voice. Composed, but differently composed than before, not the composure of containment, but something easier, something that had more room in it. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "I'm going to Franklin in 20 minutes. I wanted to," a brief pause. "Thank you for not getting back on the elevator." Marcus looked at the photograph on his own desk. Noah, last spring, kneeling in the backyard with dirt on his hands and a yellow marigold in front of him, squinting into the sun with the focused satisfaction of someone who has just done something that matters. "Tell your father hello from the 19th floor, Marcus said. "Tell him we can still see how everything connects." There was a silence on the line. Then, very quietly, she said, "I will." The following Monday, Marcus arrived at work to find a handwritten note on his desk. No letterhead, no signature, just 7 words in careful, deliberate handwriting. "He smiled when I told him that." Marcus folded the note once and put it in his desk drawer, next to the photograph of Noah and the marigold and the small, accumulated evidence of a life built carefully in the aftermath of loss, proof, patient and persistent, that even the things that break us have a way of growing something back.